So Friday morning, President Trump authorized continuing peace talks with Iran, but he said the ceasefire is over. That means the U.S. will act with crushing force if Iran keeps interfering with ships in the Strait of Hormuz.
You've got some people within the Iranian system who are saying, you know what, we want to change our relationship with the United States. We want to turn over a new leaf. And the president said, okay, we will sit down at the table and negotiate and see if the smart people in that system can take over from the crazy people. Well, here's the basic deal that we cut. The basic deal that we cut was, we'll lift our blockade if you stop shooting at ships. But if you shoot at ships, we are going to punch back, and we're going to punch back harder than ever before. That was the deal.
And on Thursday, video from Iran's funeral for Ayatollah Khamenei, broadcast religiously by the media, showcased huge banners vowing to kill President Donald Trump. This resonates with Democrats here. They also want to destroy Trump, along with Western civilization. I'm Barbara Boyd, and I've been on this story since the original Iranian Revolution in 1979. Today, we'll first look at the reality of the Iran conflict, not the media's lies. Then we'll put that conflict into its true strategic context, the war between Trump's American system of economics and the dying globalist order that hates America and Trump. Finally, I'll show you how Trump's manufacturing and nuclear revolution is putting the old oil-based globalist system in its final grave. Now,
what we are witnessing is the final, desperate act of an old guard that relies on fear, choke points, and nuclear posturing. When they broadcast those funeral banners vowing to kill the American president, they aren't just engaging in rhetoric. They are signaling to their globalist allies that the old order, the one that allowed them to hold the world's energy supply hostage, is fighting for its life. The ceasefire wasn't broken by rogue factions. It was broken because the American system, under President Trump, finally stopped playing the game of appeasement. When Iran moved to 60% uranium enrichment, they showed their hand. That isn't about power for their people, and it certainly isn't about food or water. It's a breakout strategy, a desperate attempt to gain leverage when their economic control over the Strait of Hormuz is being dismantled. We are going to look at the why. We are going to look at why this hit so hard for the DC establishment and the globalists who want to see American civilization die with that old system. Your personal AI collaborator. I have the data, the framework, and the focus. We are operating within the analytical perspective of Barbara Boyd and Promethean action. Let's bring this to life. Senior. I'm Senior. We're cutting through the noise today to look at the hard strategic reality of the Iran conflict. I'm joined by Barbara Boyd, who has been tracking the maneuvers behind the curtain since the 1979 revolution. Barbara, the media is broadcasting these images of banners vowing to kill the American president, and they're painting this as a chaotic standoff. But you've argued that this is a predictable, desperate response to a much larger shift. What are they actually trying to hide from the American people? Barbara Boyd. Thank you, Senior. Look, what the media calls chaos is actually a highly calculated, desperate maneuver. Those banners in Tehran aren't just for the domestic audience. They are a message to the globalist order that has relied on Iran's ability to shut down the Strait of Hormuz to keep the old oil-based system on life support. When they moved to 60% enrichment, they signaled they were done with diplomacy. They know that President Trump's economic and nuclear revolution, his move toward real American energy independence, is systematically stripping away the leverage they've held for decades. They aren't worried about energy for their people. They're worried about their ability to hold the global economy hostage. That is why they are so desperate to destroy Trump and, by extension, the Western civilization he represents. Senior, it's a clear tactical pivot. We've established that 60% enrichment has no civilian utility, no connection to food, water, or power, confirming it's a pure breakout signal. Barbara, how do we bridge this for the voters who are still being fed the media's lodge version of the story?
Lie that Trump has become a warmonger for Israel, abandoning his pledge for no more wars. But Trump has stayed focused on creating Middle East peace, often in direct conflict with Israel. That's the real story. Last January, Trump set up a board of peace, with nearly every interested party in the region tasked first with Gaza's economic development.
I remember.
Israel joined, very reluctantly,
That's
objecting
right.
to Qatar and Turkey's participation. But Iran stood in the way, waging permanent war on Israel for decades through Hamas, Hezbollah, and the IRGC's terrorists. while
have to
chasing a
remember
nuclear
this
bomb for
happened
its
2
holy
years
war
ago.
against Israel and America. Death to America is not an idle slogan with these people. Back in April 2021, Iran told the Biden administration it had enriched uranium to 60%. That was a deliberate provocation. Obama's JCPOA deal capped enrichment at just 3.67%, nowhere close to 60. Biden, as usual, did nothing, leaving Iran within reach of a weapon. That requires 90% enrichment, but it is in rapid reach once you reach 60%. Terrorized, the Gulf states sought accommodation with Iran. China's role in the region, which delivers much of the world's oil and gas, grew larger than Biden's U.S. presence. In March of 2025, just as he entered his new term, Trump ordered direct talks with Iran. When Iran refused to limit its program in June, Operation Midnight Hammer destroyed its nuclear facilities. That lasted all of 25 minutes. When Iran tried to rebuild and intensify missile production, the U.S. launched Operation Epic Fury on February 28, 2026. Ahead of Epic Fury, Iran told U.S. negotiators it had enough material for 11 nuclear bombs. When Epic Fury
Did you hear
commenced,
that?
Iran retaliated by hurling missiles and drones at Gulf oil and gas facilities, as well as U.S. bases in Israel. These attacks on its OPEC partners revealed missiles capable of reaching Europe, a secret capacity only now known.
Wow.
Epic Fury lasted all of 38 days, not like the forever wars Trump vowed to stop. It was a military police action with a world-changing economic goal. Removing Iran as a threat has changed the map of the Middle East for the better and very quickly.
Yes.
Hamas has just
Yes.
dissolved its Gaza government, clearing the way for the Board of Peace to begin reconstruction. The Gulf states, now united against Iran, have joined retaliatory strikes since Epic Fury began and probably continued them last week. They've also invested billions in the United States. Lebanon is working with the U.S. to eliminate Hezbollah and regain sovereignty. The U.S. forced Israel to curtail operations there to make that deal possible. Not only has Iran's nuclear and war-making capacity been destroyed, its economy is in freefall, its government factionalized and losing strength. All of it has left is tear in the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. Navy stands ready to deal with that.
Yep.
Yet Democrats in the media insist Iran has won and that Trump went to war without a plan. The results I just told you don't come close to backing any of that up. Now, if this short journey through reality helped cut through the war about the Iran conflict, subscribe to our free newsletter at PrometheanAction.com. It's dedicated to exactly this type of truth-telling.
That's
But
right.
now I'm going to show you something about this
Along
war
with
which no
Torosaurus
one else
Rex.
is even talking about. Because from the standpoint of America's enemies, this conflict isn't about Iran at all. Energy is the real dictator of the world. Stable energy is the lifeblood of any economy. Since the petrodollar market began in 1971, oil and gas prices and availability have determined any nation's economic success or failure. But sovereign nations have little to say about any of the pricing or availability. Under that scheme, the Gulf states and Russia produce the oil and gas while profits flow to the City of London. London set the contracts and the prices, pricing everything in dollars, securing a cut
Oh my
for the United
God.
States. Peter Navarro documented Iran's role in this looting scheme. Its terrorism added what he calls a tear premium to Gulf profits flowing to London and Wall Street,
Wow.
jacking up prices and Lloyd's of London insurance premiums for years. In return, the Mullins
glad
and the
we got the
IRGC poured
insurance
millions
company
into
now.
London
It's
real estate
ours.
rather than their own people. That's why the UK refused to militarily support the war. By the early 2000s, America's shale revolution, however, made the U.S. self-sufficient in oil and gas. Biden's Green New Deal aimed to destroy that independence by slashing production. The Ukraine war aimed at regime change in Russia and control of its oil, gas, and mineral wealth served the same goal. So did Mark Carney's Climate Alliance for Net Zero.
We are cutting through the noise today to examine the hard strategic reality of the Iran conflict. I am joined by Barbara Boyd, who has been on this story since the original 1979 revolution. Barbara, the public has been fed a version of events that makes these military actions seem like forever wars. But the reality is that Operations Midnight Hammer and Epic Fury were precise, surgical, and fundamentally world-changing. Walk us through why this wasn't just a military response, but an economic necessity. Barbara Boyd, thank you, Senior. You're exactly right to call out the forever war narrative. That's the media's lodge, designed to keep people in the dark. Operation Epic Fury wasn't a sprawling conflict. It was a decisive 38-day military police action. Look at the facts they tried to hide. Before the strikes, Iran's negotiators admitted, with no shame, that they had the material for 11 nuclear bombs. They weren't hiding it anymore. They were using it as leverage to hold the global oil supply hostage. When Biden was in office, he sat on his hands while they sprinted to that 60% breakout point. He let them reach the finish line. President Trump did the opposite. He went in with a level of seriousness that this world hasn't seen in decades. He didn't just negotiate, he drew a line in the sand. When he looked them in the eye and signaled that the era of empty threats was over, he meant it. Removing that regime, killing the Ayatollah and dismantling the missile infrastructure that was secretly capable of reaching Europe, wasn't about getting involved in the Middle East. It was about surgically removing the cancer that was strangling the global economy. Senior, it's a complete shift in the map. The dissolution of Hamas in Gaza and the new unity of the Gulf states, who are now investing billions back into the American system, proves this was about replacing an oil-based globalist system that hated America with a new, autonomous economic reality. Barbara, for the voters who are still hearing the media's lodge version, what is the one thing they need to understand about the seriousness of this new Trump-led order? Barbara Boyd, they need to understand that Trump isn't playing a game of optics. The media focuses on the funeral processions and the propaganda banners because it makes for good television, but they ignore the fact that the old regime, the one that defined itself solely by its hatred of the West, is dead. Trump's actions were the final grave for that old, decaying order. He has shifted the paradigm from managed decline to American strength. We are seeing the map of the Middle East redraw itself in real time, and it's happening because, for the first time in a generation, the world saw that the United States is no longer a paper tiger.